You're listening to Short History Shorts audio, where history speaks louder than images. Pericles, the towering statesman of 5th century BC Athens, was more than just a politician. He was the architect of an era. His name became synonymous with the Golden Age of Athens, a period when art, drama, philosophy, and democracy flourished like never before. To understand Pericles' legacy, we must first place him in the turbulent context of his time. Born around 495 BC into an aristocratic family, Pericles inherited both privilege and political opportunity. His father Xanthippus was a hero of the Persian Wars, fighting at the decisive Battle of Mycale, while his mother, Agariste, came from the influential Alcmaeonid family, one of the most prestigious in Athens. This noble heritage gave Pericles an entry into the political world, but his early career would be shaped not by inherited power alone, but by a sharp intellect and a commanding vision for Athens' future. Athens in Pericles' youth was a city transformed by its victory over Persia, but also riven by intense factional rivalries. Democracy, still a relatively new experiment, had been established in the wake of reforms by Cleisthenes, and was under constant pressure from both oligarchic reactionaries and populist demagogues. Themistocles, Cimon, and Ephialtes were among the great political players of the day, each influencing the shape of the Athenian state. Pericles first rose to prominence under the mentorship of Ephialtes, a radical democrat who worked to reduce the power of the old aristocratic council, the Areopagus. In 462 BC, Ephialtes pushed through reforms stripping the Areopagus of most of its authority, transferring judicial powers to popular juries drawn from ordinary citizens. This was a decisive step in deepening Athenian democracy, and Pericles was closely associated with it. When Ephialtes was assassinated, likely by political enemies, Pericles stepped into the role of Athens' leading democratic statesman. From this point forward, Pericles would dominate Athenian politics for over 3 decades, not by holding absolute office, but through his unmatched ability to persuade the assembly and his continual re-election as strategos or general. Pericles understood that the key to Athens' strength lay in both military power and cultural prestige. On the military front, he championed the expansion of the Athenian navy, the lifeblood of its empire. The Delian League, originally formed as an alliance against Persia, had by Pericles' time become an Athenian-led empire, with tribute flowing in from allied states. Pericles' policies tightened Athenian control over this network, using the resources to fund monumental building projects and to pay citizens for public service, a move that allowed even the poorest to participate in governance. His building program was unprecedented. After the Persian sack of Athens in 480 BC, the Acropolis had lain in ruins for decades. Pericles envisioned it not merely rebuilt, but transformed into a radiant symbol of Athenian glory. Under his direction, and with the genius of architects like Ictinus and Callicrates and the sculptor Phidias, Athens constructed the Parthenon, the Propylaea, the Erechtheion, and the Temple of Athena Nike. The Parthenon in particular became the jewel of Athens, a massive marble temple dedicated to Athena Parthenos, the city's patron goddess. Phidias's colossal gold and ivory statue of Athena stood within, a statement of both piety and power. This was more than architecture, it was propaganda in stone, telling the world that Athens was the cultural and political leader of Greece. The building projects were controversial. Critics, especially in rival city-states, accused Athens of misusing league funds meant for defense. Pericles, however, argued that as leader of the alliance and protector of Greece, Athens had the right to use its resources for beautification as well as military preparedness. His vision was that Athenian culture and democracy would be the twin pillars of its empire. Pericles also transformed Athenian democracy. He introduced state pay for jury service, ensuring that even poor citizens could afford to serve in the massive popular courts, which were central to Athenian justice. He reinforced the assembly's role as the ultimate decision-making body, where any citizen could speak and propose laws. While Athens was still far from a modern democracy, women, slaves, and resident foreigners were excluded. Pericles' reforms expanded participation among the citizen body and deepened the culture of civic involvement. In foreign policy, Pericles was both ambitious and cautious. He sought to consolidate the empire, avoid unnecessary wars, and maintain Athenian dominance at sea. His most famous military expedition was the conquest of Samos in 440 BC, a rebellion that was crushed after a long siege. Yet his cautious approach sometimes clashed with the aggressive instincts of other Athenians. The greatest test of his leadership came with the outbreak of the Peloponnesian War in 431 BC, a devastating conflict between Athens and Sparta and their respective allies. Pericles had sought to avoid war, but growing tensions made it inevitable. Once war began, he pursued a defensive strategy, avoiding pitched land battles with Sparta's superior hoplites, relying instead on the navy to raid the Peloponnesian coast and protect Athens' supply lines. His strategy was sound in theory, but had an unintended catastrophic consequence. When the Spartans invaded Attica, Pericles brought the rural population inside the long walls of Athens, leading to overcrowding. In 430 BC, a plague swept through the city, killing thousands, including Pericles' own sons, and severely weakening Athens. Pericles himself succumbed to the plague in 429 BC, ending an extraordinary career. His death marked a turning point in the war and in Athenian history. Without his steady hand, Athens became vulnerable to reckless leadership and factional infighting. Pericles' legacy, however, endured. Thucydides, the historian who knew him personally, described Pericles as the first citizen of Athens, respected, incorruptible, and guided by a vision for the common good. His famous funeral oration, delivered during the early years of the Peloponnesian War, remains one of the most powerful defenses of democracy ever recorded. In it, Pericles celebrated Athens' openness, its commitment to law, its cultural achievements, and its readiness to fight for freedom. He reminded Athenians that their city was an education to Greece, a model for others to follow. Today, Pericles is remembered not only as a political leader but as a cultural patron whose vision shaped Western civilization. The buildings he commissioned still inspire awe. The democratic principles he expanded still influence modern governments, and his era remains a touchstone for the heights that human creativity and civic life can achieve. Pericles' Athens was not without flaws. Its democracy excluded many, its empire rested on the subjugation of others, and its glory was shadowed by war. But in his leadership, we see the rare combination of political skill, cultural ambition, and steadfast dedication to a collective ideal. In the long arc of history, Pericles stands as a reminder that leadership is measured not only in victories or power, but in the enduring legacies left to generations